lead of President Obama now.
Alright, I'm going to try to keep this as simple as I can, considering the broad spectrum that it covers. As many of you know, there was the Iran-Contra affair, which stemmed from the Iran hostage crisis. A lot of that, there were some backroom dealings that if Reagan was elected, the Iranians would release the hostages. This could be part of the reason why some equipment was withheld or some excuses made. Maybe some people didn't want the rescue mission to succeed because they wanted Reagan in office. That doesn't mean that Reagan had anything to do with it. Because you got to remember, Bush was his VP. Bush was former head of the CIA. They had a lot of weird stuff going on. So during all that, there were other hostages that Perot, remember Perot, the big business guy, the billionaire? He put together a team with a retired colonel, Arthur Bull Simmons, and he managed to go in and get their people out that were held hostage at their corporate headquarters, because Perot had business dealings over there. So obviously, because his people had been taken hostage, he wasn't in bed with them. So, I mean, you know, that kind of shows where he was at in all of this. So enter in Ollie North and all that. Why does that really trigger into the, or how does that connect with the Merovingian stuff? Well, there's a guy by the initials JS who learned through Wallace Black Elk. Yeah, there's some people that really don't see eye to eye with Wallace. Neither do I, to be quite honest with you. Because of a ceremony that he performed, or you could say a spell that he cast on me for a while there, it's taken me a little bit to deal with. Yeah, if people want to know really who was responsible for that, well, he died because of it. Or was it old age? Yeah, I've had to deal with some very shady types. People that had ulterior motives that chose to use dark magic, dark medicine, bad medicine, and other things because they couldn't use good medicine against me. Why? Because you can't use good medicine against a good man in order to stop him or hinder him or disable him. But I can use good medicine against evil. That should have told people right there. The people that knew what he was up to should have seen it. I knew it right when I heard that song going backwards. I was like, what's going on here? And he just pops in, pops out. Thing is, I know certain things are allowed to happen. The Great Spirit allows them to happen for certain reasons in order to show everyone something, to teach everyone something. And because of my commitment, my Sundance commitment, and the ceremonies that I performed, which maybe I should do this right now, just so that you know that I have performed said ceremonies. Let's see, does that show up? It's the light, right? I wonder if they'd even show up on camera sometimes. Yeah, there, you can almost make it out. Bad light. Oh, there they are. See those two? They look almost like gunshot wounds right there. Yeah. Twice I hung. The other two are on my back for this side, and then the other two for that side. Then there's another set from Dragon. So you could say that I was in the right place at the right time during the right ceremony for the right reasons, while they were not. they could say all they want about my bloodline, but none of it has ever panned out to be true. So, I have to really go along with my suspicions of a disinformation campaign. I mean, what else can I do? JS was the type that would be in bed or have hobnobbed with people like Tracy Twyman or Nicholas DeVere. He went along with certain things like that. He had claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus Christ and a few others. I think he even went as far as Vishnu or something. See, I think he was attempting to take my place in some ways. I think he kind of is either Loki or of that kind of bloodline. I hate to put that connotation on somebody, but if I were really to look at the archetypes, I could label him as a Loki archetype. As to where, in my relationship with him, I would be kind of the Thor archetype. Dumb yet idealistic, yet a lot more intelligent than Loki even has ever comprehended. Hence, Vajra. So, I noticed he had a lot of artifacts. I'm talking like some serious Mayan stuff, like an alabaster slab about that thick, about 18 inches thick or so, or at least a foot thick. Alabaster, you know, the white kind of stuff, and it's been at least 6 feet across a circle, like a big wagon wheel. About the size of a wagon wheel, I guess. And it had a Mayan calendar on it. Even if it was a reproduction, that's a good chunk of change. But apparently it was real. But along with that, in his closet, in a little drape, he had pulled it aside to grab something, and I noticed his books. They were all on Ollie North. When I asked him about it, he said that he thought Oliver North was a hero. So you dealt coke for him, huh? I don't know. What his relationship was with him, I don't know. What he knew of the man, I don't know. Maybe he did some good. Maybe he was a patsy. Maybe he let some people in on some, but didn't let him in on enough for them to completely understand what was really going on in a lot of things. So Iran-Contra was all about coke, guns, Iran hostage exchange, everybody knows. Iran was basically allied with Russia. Tie that in with Robert Hansen and the FBI. You can tie a lot of this into Operation Dormouse, the cover-ups of torture, experiments, all that stuff. Why am I tying that in with Merovingian and Pendragon stuff? Well, because it seems that in my life, somehow my life touches both those areas. In several areas of those areas. More or less the fringe areas, I guess, as well as the core areas, the insider areas, the hidden ones areas. The leaders, the hidden ones, as some of you call us, we're not leaders as you know. We're more like prisoners of war, political prisoners. Only kept alive so that they could hopefully maybe have an offspring that'll listen to them and have our gifts or some craziness like that. Yeah, who's to say what their intents and agendas are? But one thing I do know, a lot of people were lied to about the Merovingian stuff. A lot of people. Nicholas de Beer von Drakenborg was claiming it to be Pendragon at one time. King of the Merovingians. that, I became aware of that they were also claiming that Pendragon is also king of the witches. You know, all these covens and whatever. I guess there's a group of them, or maybe all of them. I don't know, because my stepmother advised me to stay away from all of that. So there you have it. That's how long this has been in works. By her doing that, and me going, well, okay, I'll just go and do this if you think that's a bad area for me to be in. You know, there's got to be a reason why you're saying that, and if it's for ill, then that will be known at some point and dealt with by me. And any agreements or promises or whatever that I made that I felt I needed to uphold are null and void when I have become aware, and most definitely aware, that it was made through misrepresentation of information. In other words, bad advice. Advice meant to set a stumbling block for me in some area, so that they would have a place to recruit and fill people's heads full of falsehoods and down the darker paths that they could end up using you all for. Yet at the same time, the closest thing for me to grab hold of that I understand is the Native American ways and older Christian ways, as in what it says, instead of what these churches have made what it says in the Bible into. They have completely distorted it. They use it to beat people up with. They don't look at it for insight. They don't look at it as a spring. They look at it more as like a dead language. Like it says what it says and this is all that it means. But you guys don't even know what it meant then. So how do you guys know what it means right now? You gotta decide which meaning are you going to go with. And can you follow that meaning, that comprehension, infinitely? Is it ever unfolding? Is there always another step of growth without destroying the previous stuff? Or do you find yourself constantly having to defend a lie, and then you've defended it enough that nobody asks it anymore, but every now and then it crops up? And when it does, you hope they don't notice, because that might unravel everything else. So you start supporting that lie, and it grows and it grows and it grows. The thing is, if you go ahead and go back and fix that, go, oh yeah, we figured out that this don't make sense, so we're going to set it over here. Anybody got any ideas on it? Cool. If not, we're going to set it over here, and this isn't going to be a definite in our stuff. It's just going to be a but this stuff we know is bam. But that takes true humility. That takes true meekness. That takes true wisdom. Come on. True integrity. What does that take? A lot of people think to protect the integrity of something you have to lie about the things that might destroy the integrity of something. The thing is if you have to lie about something to protect the integrity of something, then the integrity of that something is crap. It's simple logic. Yet I found that simple logic escapes and eludes most people in replace of a quick fix, a half measure. I'm going to get what I can and run. And then after it collapses on you guys, I'm going to come back and scavenge whatever off your dead bodies I can. See, I got a real problem with people like Nicholas DeVere, Tracy Twyman, and all these others, because they've used my culture, my familial stuff, because they can't find their own. Yet they want to be something powerful, and they have no comprehension of what real power is. You're thinking It's in numbers or the ground you hold. Yeah, it's not just them. It's this Michael LaFosse guy and several others. People that drifted into the woodwork after he was outed because a certain person, namely me, said, hey, wait a minute. I got a lot more right to those titles than he does. And how did he get that high up in all these organizations without ever proving this? And how come nobody ever came and knocked on my door? Oh, because you guys had people believing I was... Yeah, I was amazed how they pulled that one off. I mean, it was a pretty nice piece of work, but in order for you to pull it off, I would have had to really been crazy and insane, and I would have killed myself by now if I was. Wouldn't I have? Or somebody else. Shouldn't I be crazier now? I mean, I'm sure if you went back and looked at the thread on the David Icke site, you would be able to read the difference just in the words I wrote compared to now. So there's proof enough right there. Or at least that should be proof enough. It's a lot more proof in what I'm saying than what they said, because they based a lot of that on Toby Tompkins' diagnosis of a possible schizoaffective disorder. Yet during that same time, she had mentioned he's malnourished and and a few other things, and this, that, and the other thing. And under a lot of stress and duress. So yeah. So they built a whole diagnosis around a suspected possibility, which was never found to be the case. So I guess they didn't read the file on from that, or the files from St. Louis, Missouri, or many other places about how well balanced I was. I even have it in my medical records how surprised the doctors were at how healthy I was, both physically, mentally, or all three, and emotionally. Spiritually never came into the conversation because, well, they're medical professionals. So, there you have some more of the story. Yes, what kind of news would that make if the hereditary king of Scotland and England, the potential holder of the title of Chief Justice of Ireland, potential king of the hereditary king of France, along with all that comes the crown of Jerusalem. Yeah, the titles are connected to a lot of different things. Not to mention $33 trillion worth assets, holdings, and monies that are doled out from the Crown Corporation, or the Crown Corporation. I don't know why they have a corporation running. What belongs to the Crown, unless the person that's got the crown sitting on their head, that Elizabeth gal, or whatever her name is, isn't the rightful heir. And some people are waiting for the once and future king to return. Thing is, they want to try to hide it from everybody. By hiding it, they don't have to give it to me. Or whoever ends up popping up claiming it. And they could hold it off and make a big game of it forever. And then the next generation, and then the next, and then the next. Then it would probably take an armed conflict, and then finding those documents after that conflict and taking it back. And then people would go, you mean we could have averted all this? Yeah. What kind of stink would that raise with what they've done? just to me personally. Let alone those of the magical bloodlines or the medicine bloodlines, the bloodlines of chiefs, bloodlines of prophets, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying you're automatically that if your dad or your mother or your aunt, your uncle, or your great-grandfather was, but there is more of a potential because it gets encoded in your genetics on some levels. So rather than needing to read those codes in a code book or a spell book or in a book of incantations, those are already in your genetic code. That's why some people got into stealing hair for a while there. How'd that work out for you? You have to steal it, causes a blowback. Just one of those safety mechanisms that nature put into things, and God. Yeah, I keep things pretty simple, but I can get complicated if I have to. But I prefer simplicity because that's how I prefer to understand it. It keeps me from adding to or taking away. Because I've seen some people get so lost in their intellects and their imaginations that they forget where they started. As they say, never forget where you came from. So why all this? Well, Bush does trace his ancestry back to Pippin the Short, the Carolingian that stabbed the Merovingian in the back and gave the Frankish Empire into the hands of the Vatican. And the Vatican saw us, the magical kings, the magical long-haired kings, and our kind as an abomination to be hunted down and slaughtered. Same thing they did to the Native Americans, right? Or I should say that they specifically targeted certain families. But I think somewhere along the line they realized that targeting specific families and letting it be known was not the right course of action, because then it would be known that they were targeting specific types of people. What are those specific types of people? Those specific types of people are the hereditary leaders, medicine people, and healers of their people, given those gifts by God. You take that away and give it to somebody else, and then they're relying on their own understanding. See how it is? You can learn a lot from spell books, yeah. I'm not slighting that in the slightest. I'm just putting it all into context. When you do, you're relying on your own understanding of those spells, or whatever your purpose for them is. When it's in your code, when it's in this, it's not your own understanding. It just is. And it's that simple. Yeah, and if the power's in the hair, then I would have probably been dead because I shaved my head a couple of years there. Yeah, I had it real short. Yeah, I don't know. The way I look at hair is it's more like a heat sink. Helps me process. Keeps my brain from short-circuiting. I'm just getting a case of the efforts and drinking. also keeps me humble. Believe it or not. It makes me think maybe I should be a bit more of a gentleman and carry this hair the way it should be carried. How else can I put these things? There it is. Bushes go back to those people. Where does Cheney fit in it? Probably the same line, similar line. Rumsfeld, all of them. And none of them can trace their royal bloodline before the entrance of the Vatican. Yet I can. Mine is pre-Roman. As well as when Roman did occupy, we managed to hold on to certain things. Essex and Sussex. Interesting how the oldest human was found in Sussex. 500,000 years old. I think it was. Was it? Yeah, somewhere right there. They call it the Box Cave Man or something. Yeah, he's Neanderthal. Then they show the evolution. And they were using tools too. They had some big stone tools. But I think those were just something else. I don't know. So why the whole Merovingian area? I don't know, but it fits. Especially if you tie in that new King Arthur movie. The way the storyline's set up. Them saying that he's half Sarmatian, which would mean he's half Iranian. See what I mean? The level of diversion, disinformation stuff, false flag tactics, yada yada yada. And then naming his squire Joel's, as in Joel's property kind of connotation. Then that the Woads, Merlin's people, believed that if they were killed by King Arthur's sword, they would go right to heaven. And I believe that's the same belief that the Muslims have of the Imam Mahdi when he returns. So there were a lot of overtones of that whole story. Probably to speak to certain conspiracy theory types or people that were taught certain coded types of messages or read certain stories or were paying a lot of attention to the Da Vinci Code information and the Arthurian information. In case I ever popped up, they could put a silent word out that, oh, this guy is Muslim or something, or he might cause a big Muslim uprising based on these specific characteristics, this life story, this, and this. He could potentially place himself into a position of influence based on these things. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, based on these other things, I should already have that. Based on everything you guys have said, all that stuff written out there about all this stuff, I should have, I should be living in a penthouse or a castle or something. I should be able to get in my little sports car, drive down to my little think tank and go, okay, what do you guys need me for? Come in with my little entourage, going Pendragon in the house or something, something crazy. Something just to add life to the whole thing instead of all that tried political diplomatic crap. Here's the other thing. Because of all this, I think the state of California, everything that is on Californian soil, that includes all of the naval vessels and everything else that are based here, I think that all should be given to me. Yeah, that's really what I think. I think that would be a good start as a settlement, as well as giving me all my titles back, my family titles. Isn't booting out that queen and saying, yeah, you know what, this guy's right, you guys did do this illegally, and then because of all this that happened, yeah, we think you guys kind of have proven that he is the rightful heir, and maybe you should give him all of that. And California too. And then California and UK, well, I would have to rename them, wouldn't I? I'd have to go with something a bit more traditional. Merovingia sounds good, but it's not Native American enough, is it? We'd call it a Morca, but that was already used in south of France and UK area when that was all united underneath one monarchy or whatever a long time ago. We'd call it something like Cameroon. You know, Meru. Meru. Camelot. Meru. Has a Native American sound to it, don't it? Just in thoughts. Because, you know, the more this stuff goes on, the more I think maybe California does need to become its own country and separate itself from the rest of this insanity. Because California has a lot to offer, and it shouldn't be used up on all this. I mean, even if it was a war power, California standing alone would just, yeah, it would make decisions that would override whatever America thought it could do, because California would then become the foremost economy of the world, wouldn't it? I have this sneaky suspicion that California is kind of like one big experiment, like a prison camp of sort, like a lab. Thing is a prison, especially nowadays, is built not just to keep people in, but also to keep people out. And if all the people on the inside remove all the locks, an ability to lock things down, and turn it into a defensive, all of it into defensive things, that would be an almost impenetrable castle. So that's where my logic is in a lot of this, is if that is the case, then it's easily remedied. Because I don't think our government's going to do anything. I don't think they're going to make the right choices. And the more this goes on, the more insane it's going to get. But there's an option. The other option is we completely restructure our system. We remove a lot of the problem points. We start from scratch on a lot of things, especially our mental health fields. Certain other areas in our police departments, kind of like a re-education of our social structures and systems, of our protective services, reintroducing humanity back into it. No offense, guys, but some of you get a little too separate from your community and detached, to where a almost Superman complex starts forming, or a Lex Luthor complex. And I say that with a lot of respect too, because hey, it happens. You guys wouldn't be what you are if that kind of stuff didn't happen. If things go wrong, that happens. If you're that kind of stuff. So it's not meant as any slight. And this is something I have to work on speaking to, is making sure I clarify certain things. And the point there is, because once you know these things and work on them, sorry, my lower back's killing me. I need to get a lower seat or raise that up more. Or sit back or something. The thing is realize is once you know these things and begin to work on them, those things disappear over time. Each generation that learns them adds to the pot, and you learn from them. The next thing you know, your whole crew, your whole station, your whole region, your whole city, your whole battalion, whatever, changes. Because a group of you decided enough's enough. We're going to do this humbly, we're going to do this with meekness, we're going to do this with compassion, but we're going to also be firm and Spartan about it if we need to. We can go Spartan real quick, can't we? So, anyways, I'm probably going to change the title because this didn't really go into Iran-Contra affair stuff too much. It's not really something I like touching base on, but it's something I have to because the whole Reagan election, everything after Ford was really wonkers. Or was it Willy Wonkers? And then after all that, oh God, it's just, you go on and on. We all can go on and on about this. We can uncover crimes in all this for the next 100 years. The thing is, we already got an airtight case. We've had an airtight case for at least a couple of years now. I could have provided an airtight case 5 years ago, even in the midst of everything that was going on and me nearly having complete breakdowns because of it all. Because I couldn't process things properly in my brain and my heart because of those pills. So yeah, these videos, they're pretty much more or less kind of like a testimony. Like I said, I would have preferred to do all this in a congressional series of hearings that probably would have lasted at least a year, of at least once a week doing a 4-hour briefing in front of Congress, divulging a lot of this. And then for the rest of the week, I'd be with a group that would help me assess certain things, for people that I could just hang with and talk to and feel like a normal human being, instead of some fucked up lab rat. Excuse my language. Oh wow, I only used the F word once. I'm wondering if I used it in the last video or not. Anyways, maybe I'll keep track, because some people tend to want me to be perfect. I don't know if it's just to get under my skin, or if it's because they want me to be at my most articulate, most, what do they call it, publicly acceptable, politically correct best, I guess, I don't know. So I consider those things, and I take them into account. I go, yeah, I can work on it there. Whatever your reason is, I don't care. If it's for ill will, then it's going to come back on you. If it's to help me out and help you out to better understand, then right on, hey, sweet, no problem. But if it's just to be some jerk that thinks he's got something to prove, that can become a problem. Because then you need to start taking a look at yourself. Why? What are you trying to protect? If it's just your ego, whatever, okay, you'll get over that at some point. But if it's to protect a lie that somebody's told, something that somebody's gotten away with for quite some time, then all you've done is exacerbated it, expounded upon the problem, expanded the problem, created a bigger problem. Because because you've kind of solidified not only the agenda but the intent on some people's parts. And as far as I'm concerned, anything that is intentionally trying to jam me up or whatever is not a good thing. I mean, what else can I say other than this is at 40 minutes. My back's hurting, my neck's hurting, and like I'm trying to put some effort towards is keeping these under 45 minutes, because that way it kind of makes me boil it down better, and it helps me find that middle ground between what the statistics say and what I believe people's potential for their attention span is. I could put together things that string together over years. That's how my attention span is for some things. For other things, it's algebra. Oh my God, I can't do the math kind, but I can sure think along those terms. That's why I scored so high in my algebraic aptitude. Come on, man, give me a break. Just let me be me. Yeah. There's the math form of algebra. Then there's the figuring things out algebra. And when you get locked into the math, you think along the lines more in numbers than the more abstract parts of life. Me, I had to use that part of my brain to survive. So when I try to do algebra, I start working all the potential formulas for the problem. Somehow I come up with the right answer. But I've worked it using several different formulas. Somehow I worked them all right. I don't know how it works out. Maybe it's because I figure out the answer first and then I just fill in the blanks. I play a guessing game to show my work. That's why all the formulas are there, is I figured, I don't know what they call it. What do they say? If you can't baffle them with BS, dazzle them with brilliance. So I've had to do a lot of dazzling. Sorry, but yeah, it's just kind of good to feel more myself, to feel calmer. Do not feel like every cell in my body is screaming to just destroy something. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but try experiencing that for years. And then after that, try allowing yourself to not experience that. If you've ever experienced any prolonged anxiety, imagine that for years, and then imagine controlling that and subduing that and working around that because you knew that it wasn't real. You knew it was coming from an outside source. It's a jug of antifreeze. No. Yeah, that's what these new... Oh, shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to do an ad placement. Damn it. It's not even what's in the jug. So, it's just some vitamin B water and stuff. Gotta stay healthy, and that's the other thing I've stopped listening to, is what other people say my body needs. And I share all this with other people so that they'll feel more comfortable in finding what they need. And that's where that is. I feel it's better to teach based on your own experience. It's worked for you. And let people open up. If they just want to take it, whatever, fine, whatever. rich takers that don't believe in paying for something real. They would rather just have a light show, some fancy feathers. I can do that. Hey, you guys want to pay me $500,000 to give me an Indian name? I'll give you an Indian name. These something like fool thinks he can buy medicine. You know, I mean, that's how a lot of that looks and appears to me. And that's why I have a very hard time putting a price on anything I do. But maybe I should figure out how to do that, huh? At least I'd be more comfortable. Why should I care if it gets distorted because I see dollar signs more than I see the truth? Should I care about that? Because I don't know if other people do or not. So maybe I'll change the title from this to Merovingians Pendragon and the Truth about a few things. And figured I'd say about a few things, that way you don't think it's the complete truth. Because there's another thing that I've realized. I do it too sometimes. We all read into things too much, or we take things as definite just because we think they sound definite. It freaks me out. So I'm pretty sure when people do that to other people, or when I do something like that, it freaks you out too. So hey, there it is. I act like a wimpy tough guy, don't I? I don't mind being a wimpy tough guy. You gotta have some tough guys with heart, don't you? Or with a heart that can experience pain, that can understand pain, that can go right into the pits of hell and grab somebody out that's a victim, as somebody else is beating up the guys that caused it. You gotta be a little bit more resilient to do that. What do they call that? The guy that... Anyways. Flashbacks. Oh, whatever. I don't know why I went there. I started getting a little dizzy when I did too. That was weird. It was like some kind of movie flashback scene. Sorry. I guess it's a little late right now. It's 11:07. How interesting. 11:07 at 47 minutes.